Hi guys, so unless you've spent the last month being trolled by Elon Musk on Twitter, you have probably noticed that Sony has released the ZV-E1, the ZV-E1, and this camera is basically a Sony A7S III with some tweaks in a smaller body. So a question I've been getting a lot, obviously, is how does the A7S III compare to the ZV-E1? And since Sidney Crosby didn't make the playoffs this year, I am awfully bored, so I am going to do that video right now. Let's talk about it. So obviously these cameras are going to have a lot in common when they have the same sensor and the same processor. They're both going to shoot 4K 60 with no crop, 4K 120 with a 1.1 times crop. There'll be a caveat to that. We'll talk about that when it comes to the differences, but basically the image quality should be pretty much identical on these two cameras. However, the A7S III still costs $3,500 and the ZV-E1 costs $2,200. So now let's break down what you get for that $3,500 for the A7S III. First and foremost is the EVF, the electronic viewfinder. It is not just any old viewfinder, 9.44 million dots. It is the best viewfinder in the game. I'm not sure why they put it in such a video-centric camera, but it's a welcome thing if you own that camera. Absolutely fantastic. Is you can look through on a sunny day, line up your shot. It's so great. 9.44 million dots. I wish it was in every Sony camera. And the ZV-E1 doesn't even have an EVF at all. And when you're out in the bright sunshine, you will realize that is a big difference sometimes. Speaking of the bright sunshine, the A7S III has a better LCD screen, so even if you don't use the EVF, the 1.44 million dots is better on the A7S III than the 1.04 million dots on the ZV-E1. So with the ZV-E1, you're probably going to have to take around one of these little LCD viewfinders. You can buy these pretty cheap. This one costs about 30 bucks. It actually can strap to the LCD, and so I keep these in my bag when I have a camera that doesn't have an EVF. Link in the description below. Mechanical shutter. The A7S III is a very capable hybrid camera with that great EVF and having a mechanical shutter. Mechanical shutter will help you when you're having rolling shutter issues. If something is really fast moving through the screen, you may have some slanted lines, you know, on like a slap shot, you know, not Sidney Crosby's because he didn't make the playoffs this year, but a slap shot, you see the stick, it may bend if you're using electronic shutter, or if you have a bunch of different LED lights and they're blinking at different frequencies, that may show up in your photos. So if you have mechanical shutter, that eliminates all of that. And so even though the A7S III only has 12 megapixels, 12 megapixels is still plenty good for most work that a lot of people do. And having such a capable hybrid camera in the A7S III, that is a big deal. It also has a faster flash sync. It's 1/30 compared to 1/250, and that will make a big difference to a lot of people using flash. It has the 2 card slots, and this cannot be overstated. This is absolutely huge. If you are doing professional work, you want redundant recording. If you're doing some lady's special day or some gentleman's special day, let's not be sexist here. Maybe it's the guy who considers the wedding his special day, and he's not just doing it because his wife is dragging him into it and making him spend $65,000. It's neither here nor there. It's a special day, and you need to have redundant recording. You need to capture it to 2 media, because if one card corrupts, you are absolutely screwed. So any pro work, you have to record at least 2. Now with the ZV-E1, you could record externally and internally, so that might be a way around it, but it's really nice to have the 2 card slots in there. And the 2 card slots in there can also be SD cards or CF Express A cards. And so if you want that faster card for those higher codecs, especially that the A7S III has, then there you go. And speaking of professional work, RAW recording. You can record externally RAW from the A7S III. You cannot do that from the ZV-E1. A lot of professionals will want to shoot RAW to something like a Ninja 5 recorder that I have right here on top of my A7 IV right now. So if that's something you want in the A7S III, not in the ZV-E1. Something else that'll help out the pros is the full-size HDMI. Everyone loves a full-size HDMI and they hate the micro HDMI, and for good reason. They break very easily, the micro, the cords, and the ports themselves. So it's much better to have a full-size HDMI. So that might not seem like a problem until it is. Overheating. The A7S III is fantastic with the overheating. You want to record long 4K 120, 4K 60, or just in a warm environment and you're recording regular modes, then the A7S III has been consistently very reliable for people over the years. The ZV-E1 has too much power put in a little body, so in warm environments, you're probably going to get some overheating in the regular modes, and you're going to get overheating in 4K 60 and 4K 120 in any form of longer recording. So if overheating is a thing, like see, the ZV-E1, to be fair, is being pushed to content creators who are going to be recording in short bursts. Like I am buying the ZV-E1. I've already bought it. It's on the way here through the mail. So I don't know how the mail works, but it's coming eventually, and I am going to use it for what it's intended. Short clips, short bursts. I want to do some 4K 120, things like that, but I wouldn't want to record long things. I wouldn't do a podcast, for a long period of time, a 3-hour podcast. I'm not doing that on the ZV-E1, but you can do that on the A7S III. The A7S III has a better build. It's a more robust camera. It's a magnesium alloy, whereas the ZV-E1 is mostly recycled plastic, and so much more durable. And with that durability, it's also weather sealed. It's fully weather sealed, the A7S III. The ZV-E1 is weather resistant, but it is not weather sealed. And on that better body is more dials. There's an extra dial on the A7S III, so you traditionally, you want to use your aperture, your shutter speed, and then you can use the scroll wheel for something else, whereas the ZV-E1 just has the one dial on the back and the scroll wheel, so that is not as good when you're in the field and you want to make quick adjustments. Also not as good with the ZV-E1 is it has less buttons, so the A7S III has more buttons, so you can customize your camera to your heart's content, and that makes things a lot faster when you get really used to how you have everything set up. That muscle memory, just touching all those buttons, fantastic. ZV-E1 doesn't have as many. And the A7S III also has a joystick, which can really help when it comes to photography, especially you just move that joystick around for your autofocus point or whatever you want to do, and that has been very helpful on the cameras that I have that. So, in terms of being a hybrid, once again, much better hybrid is the A7S III. But what about the ZV-E1? It does definitely have some advantages over the A7S III, even though it is a cheaper camera. They have some newer tech in there, and hopefully there'll be some updates to the A7S III. They just updated the FX3 with focus breathing compensation, so that's great. Hopefully they will do that as well for the A7S III. But right now, as of April 20th, 2023, they do not have focus breathing compensation, so I will write down for ZV-E1 focus breathing compensation. It also has focus mapping, which I like to use a lot on the A7 IV. It really helps me nail that critical focus when I'm doing manual focusing, and I really, really like that. I think that's a good addition. Once again, I hope that comes to the A7S III. Now, something that will not come to the A7S III is the A7R5 autofocus. That's because it has a new AI chip in the ZV-E1, so you can get that cool A7R5 autofocus. You'll be able to track a lot more subjects like trains and planes and cars and different animals, and the A7S III is not going to have all of those tracking modes. It's going to have a new mode called dynamic stabilization. So both cameras will have active stabilization. That works pretty well on the A7S III. However, this dynamic stabilization looks like it is just really, really great. It uses a crop in and uses some of that artificial intelligence and some of the gyro data, and it definitely gives you a very smooth looking image. And since this is targeted at people who are going to walk around and hold a camera, then, this is a very good thing. And related to that, we have the auto framing and the auto tracking. So the auto framing, if you want to keep something in the center of the frame, it will crop in a little bit and just try to keep it there for you, or a different part of the screen if you want. And then there is the auto tracking, where the camera can act like it's your own cameraman, so it can just follow you around the screen by, once again, cropping in a little bit or a lot, depending on how much you want to crop in, and then it can just follow you around like you have friends and you're not filming by yourself in the basement because you're sad about your hockey team. It's got a cool new time-lapse mode where it will actually make the time-lapse for you in camera and spit out a 4K file. I like that. Had it on my Panasonics, and I find that to be a huge time saver. I don't like bringing in the photos into Lightroom and making my own time-lapse. That is tedious. It's got the product showcase mode, so for the people who want to show the products, you see that? You can't show the products here because I have to cover up my gorgeous eyes if I want to showcase a product. Look at my product. Oh, look at these hands. What a product that is. Guess I should have held up an actual product. Oh, look at this. I still have it in my hand. Here it is, a little LCD EVF right there. Links in the description below. But I do find product showcase mode useful. I use it on my little ZV-E10, so it just locks to the product and then goes right back to your dumb face. And ZV-E1 also has helpful beginner modes. It has the defocus button if you need that. But I think some of the helpful modes would be something like the cinematic vlog mode that they have that gives you the fake black bars and then puts like an S-Cine tone on, or another mode that you may want to choose. I think that is great for beginners. They're going to get that nice smooth footage with that dynamic stabilization, and then they can have something that looks quite good coming straight out of camera without a lot of editing knowledge. So I think that's helpful. It has the tally lamp in front that will help you know that you are recording. Cameras that don't have tally lamps, it's difficult sometimes. You're talking away like a moron and your camera is not actually recording. No worries about that on the ZV-E1. When it comes to streaming, I will put an asterisk by this. You can stream up to 4K 30 on the ZV-E1, but in all of the tests I've seen, you don't get very long, maybe 20, 25 minutes. So if you're streaming in short bursts, sure, the 4K 30, but really, in reality, you'll probably be streaming straight from the camera in 1080. So that doesn't give it much of an advantage, but it is still there, so I'll write it down. Size and weight, it is 483 grams, and that is a very light full-frame camera. You want to handhold it, going to be nice and light. You want to run it on a gimbal, it's going to be nice and light, so advantage. So when you look at the two cameras, to me, the A7S III is the more complete package. No, it doesn't have focus breathing compensation in it, and it doesn't have some of those new AI features like the dynamic stabilization, but when you're doing pro work, you're often using gimbals. Anyway, the focus breathing compensation shouldn't be too much of an issue unless you're doing really long focus pulls and things like that. To have the redundant recording, to have the raw output, to have the no overheating issues, it is just a far, far more professional camera. If you're only going to have one camera, then out of the two, I mean, I would definitely take the A7S III, but the thing is, it's a lot more expensive than the ZV-E1. So $3,500 compared to $2,200. Now the A7S III has been out a while, so you may be able to find one used on the used market. Now, if that used price is getting somewhere closer to the $2,200, then I think that is a bit of a no-brainer unless you're legitimately a vlogger who wants to vlog. Now, that's the thing is, I actually do want that camera for those types of things, for traveling around, for doing the vlogs, for doing short clips, because I have other cameras. I have an FX30, which is my reliable workhorse. I have my A7 IV, which is my photo camera and my hybrid camera. I do my talking head YouTube videos a lot on the A7 IV. So for me, the ZV-E1 is a perfect complement to the cameras I already had. But if I didn't have any cameras and I could find the A7S III somewhere remotely close to the price of the ZV-E1 on the used market, I think that is a better buy. But right now here in Canada, the A7S III is still nowhere near the price of the ZV-E1. It's at least $1,000, maybe $1,500 more, even on the used market. So for me, I'm going ZV-E1. So let me know what you guys think down below. Which of these two cameras would you buy? Would you buy neither? Would you buy something else? FX30, FX3, A7 IV. Overall, my favorite camera of all time is the A7 IV. I'm happy to be back shooting on it right now with this video. Love the A7 IV. Overall, for me, that is the best value camera for the money, and I love it. But it does do 4K 60 at a crop, and it doesn't have 4K 120. What are you gonna do? Nobody's perfect. Okay, Harvey, nobody's perfect. Don't you ever let anyone put you down, buddy. And you out there, don't you let anyone put you down either, because you watch this channel, which means you are a very intelligent, rational, fantastic human being. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.